Hi everyone and welcome along. Today we're going to paint some honeysuckle. Now honeysuckle is something I've painted in a loose style last year in my spring simple watercolour flowers, but this time we're going to go into a bit more detail. So grab your paints and let's get started. So we'll begin with a pencil stem and we'll have our honeysuckle having two flowers and maybe a little bit of an extra growth there, but really we don't need much more than that. Anyone who follows many of my paintings will know that I'm more about drawing with the brush than doing too much pencil lines to then essentially colour in. That's not really how I paint. So what I'm doing is I'm just mixing up permanent rose and I'm waking up permanent rose. It means I've just added some water and getting it nicely mixed in my palette well. I've also got some cadmium orange here and some cadmium yellow and also some yellow ochre, which I've recently become a big fan of adding to pink, and it makes a lovely blush colour. So honeysuckle petals have a beautiful sort of graded blend from a sort of, well, a honey colour really, out to a more of a pink, but we do have various petals that will have already opened up in trumpet form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint those in first, because we want to be able to see everything individually, but sort of just working out the order in which we do things to make sure that stuff can still show up. So I'm going to begin painting with my 2/10 brush, and I've got a sort of honey coloured mix, which is a mixture of these three colours here: cadmium orange, yellow ochre, cadmium yellow. And I'm just making sure the yellow doesn't dominate it too much. And as I said, we're going to paint a flower down here and a flower up here. So I'm going to begin by painting out and just splaying the brush a little bit there. And then this first flower is going to be one of these open trumpets of honeysuckle. And I'm just going to drop in a little bit of permanent rose just at the bottom there. And I'm going to pop a few more of these open flowers. So I'm just working cautiously with plenty of very dilute paint. And you can see that by adding that permanent rose, it doesn't necessarily make a really pink colour, it just sort of creates a very warm amber kind of colour. And that's how we begin. So I'm just going to fill in some open trumpets down here as well. Now we've got the open flowers, I'm now going to start just building up the shape with some more sort of teardrop shaped honeysuckles, always dropping in the pink. And this time I'm going to be sort of painting in behind the trumpets that I've already painted. But this is all still very loose and dilute, because we can add in plenty of detail afterwards. But watercolour is all about building up delicate layers and going nice and slowly and in a measured manner. Sometimes it's about going really fast, watercolour, but Today we can take our time. There's a bit of a hook on the end of these teardrop shapes, so they curl around a little bit. We start with the flower because it is the sort of focal piece on the painting, and it is much easier to then paint in the leaves and the other bits around it, but it would be very hard to add this in later on because it takes up quite a lot of room. And I'm just anchoring my petals all from that central point for both flowers. And it's so important that you paint nice and dilute at this stage so that we can build up more layers as we go. I'm now going to paint in the leaves, just the basic shape of the leaves, because they're quite broad and they're going to take up quite a lot of space on here, and then we'll know where we need to place in the stem. And I'm going to use a size 4 brush and Sap Green. So I've got a nice coating on the brush, and I'm going to place in some leaves at the junction here. We'll just fill that one in, and I do always like to pop in a little bit of dark blue, so we've got some French Ultramarine here just to dab in there. They are smooth-sided leaves, but they do have a nice bit of leaf detail texture on them, which is something we will do. So I'm going to add in my leaves as I go. Usually they grow, well they do grow at parallel junctures, so you'll always get 2 together. And you can, if you want, just use a single brush stroke to create some of these smaller leaves just by squashing the brush down and using both the belly of the brush and the tip. Leaves are largely painted in, so now I'm getting a bit of green gold into my Sap Green, and I can start painting in the stem with my 2/10 brush. So I'm using the pencil line and then just broadening it out. There's also a bit of red in the stem, I find. Now it's very important, if you are going to place in a bit of a sort of pinky red colour, to do it in as few brush strokes as possible. So I'm just going to do that. I don't want to muddy the colours because green and pinky red are complementary colours, which means they are opposite sides of the colour wheel, and they kind of want to fight each other if they are placed in a sort of situation where they're both fighting for prominence. But if you just gently place one in over the other, then you can make it work. And I've got this extra stem off up here, and what I want to do is create a not yet flowered sort of beginnings of a bud. So I'm just going to use the green and the green gold and create with a few tapered lines something on its way. Get a little bit of that French Ultramarine in there as well. And we might just pop in some very dainty leaves too. So we're essentially just filling in the basic washes until we've got everything painted, and then we can start doing some detail. Back with my 2/10 brush, I've mixed up some French Ultramarine blue, a bit of a hair in it, French Ultramarine blue and some Sap Green, and it's quite a concentrated colour, and I'm going to begin some leaf detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin by doing a central line, and then curling out from the centre. It's very important that you keep those curves going. Then I'm going to clean my brush off properly, and now with the wet brush I'm going to blend that colour into the leaf. And what happens is we're starting to get the beginnings of some leaf detail, but it's not just going to be painting in some lines on top and them looking very sort of painted and a bit of an afterthought. We are integrating this detail into the leaf, and we will be doing a second layer once it's dried. So I'm now going to just go through and paint the beginnings of detail onto this. So once again, clean that brush right off, and then just blend, you see, sort of just the one half of the line. So I'm not blending the top line, but then I go to the next one, and then extend it to the end, and then the other side is usually a bit fainter, but still. And what happens is you just get snatches of crisp detail, and the rest has blended in nicely. Even with that first layer of detail on, it really looks fantastic, makes a lot of difference, but there's always room for another layer. So with my even smaller brush, my 4/10, I'm just going to sort of reiterate, I suppose, some of that detail with the finer line. And yeah, just adds a little bit more. So we're now at the stage where we just have detail left to do, so we'll now make a start on the honeysuckle flowers themselves. First off, we have a little bit of a sort of sepal growth, which is where all the little petals are protruding from. So I've just done a few little brush strokes in that greeny blue dark colour, and now it's time to get the permanent rose in a bit more concentrated form. And I'm going to use it as my sort of detail colour, and just with a 4/10 brush begin to use it, both sort of using the belly of the brush to get a broader line, but also the fine tip to begin to give these honeysuckle petals the extra detail. So it's important not to be too heavy-handed, because what's lovely about these honeysuckles is the sort of sunrise blend that you get with that first layer we put on. But we do need this permanent rose detailed layer to make sure we can actually see what we're looking at. This is a classic case of layering, and if you are a little unsure about layering up colour and sort of what the general rules are and things, I've just done a layering quick fix, which is my 5-minute watercolour videos in my quick fix channel, playlist, beg your pardon, which just covers one specific topic and goes through it and breaks it down into simple steps, so you can have a look at that as well. But I'm just going to go through and get some nice lines of permanent rose detail on these honeysuckle petals. Now we are just going to add some filaments and sepals to those opened up flowers. So we've got the golden honey colour that we had right at the beginning, and I'm just painting some nice fine lines coming out of the trumpets. And then some green gold to just do a little dash of an anther on the filament. And all that's left to do is just sort of see whether we could do with a little bit of shadow anywhere. So I'm going to just add some burnt sienna to my dark green blue mix, and a little bit more of the blue to create a nice shadowy colour. And I'm still just going to be cautious and use my smallest brush, and yeah, just have a little look, maybe on the underside of some of the stems. I don't think we need much at all. And there we go. Some honeysuckle in my controlled loose watercolour style. Thanks so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed that one. I want to say a huge thank you to my patrons for their support, because that support enables us to keep creating these videos that everyone can enjoy. And if you enjoyed it, then hit the like button and comment below to let me know how you're getting on. And of course, if you subscribe, then you'll never miss another video. Okay, until next time, bye!